Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodeau, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us, however you may be joining us. We appreciate it very, very much. And always glad to have with us some representatives from the Regional Military Museum. They do a great job in our community. Welcome, Mr. Riley Grow, the president. Welcome, Mr. Riley.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sitting next to him is Miss Linda Terrio. Miss Linda, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, really excited about what's coming up and how you always find a way to celebrate those veterans. But it's going to be about these World War II veterans here in Pearl Harbor. Really exciting to talk a little bit about today. Let's talk about the event. It is the Regional Military Museum. It presents Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Open house December 7th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The guest speaker is going to be a school teacher.
Correct.
Over in from Thibodeau, Miss Betsy Arsenault. Really excited about that. It is free for everyone to attend. If you would like to get more information, you can always reach out to them at 985-873-8200 for more information. And so there are so many veterans, Mr. Riley, in our area that we celebrate. None probably as acclaimed or established and those who have put their time in than C.J. Chris.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about him and his accomplishments and your experience with him.
Well, I was about 5 years old when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I was born in 1938. I remember the war. I remember the blimp base. I can remember the rationing. But of course, what's a 5 to 7 year old boy doing about a war? But anyway, today, December the 7th, we want to celebrate that. We want to recognize them. A lot of good men put up and lost their lives that day.
Yeah, and women.
Linda, I'm sorry, has the information on what we're going to have and how it's going to be done.
Okay.
Well, it's a day of remembrance, and on that day, the Oklahoma was bombarded with 9 torpedoes, okay? And 436 people lost their lives in that ship alone.
Right.
And to highlight, too, that's kind of related to the museum in a way is one of them is Richard Watson. He's the great uncle of our Vice President, Stephen Domain.
Okay.
And he is one of them that the remains were identified.
Right.
And in 2021, he was buried up in North Louisiana, where he was from. And of course, that's a picture of his funeral. They do a full military service.
Sure.
And then I had the honor of attending in Bogalusa, Louisiana, another Louisiana man that lost his life on the Oklahoma named Houston Temples. Mm-hmm. And what an honor it was to meet his family. His mother died, they said, with the Purple Heart in her hand. She kept it close to her heart all her life. And so they were able to give hearts to the immediate family, which was then it was the nieces and nephews.
Right.
All the siblings were gone. But they had a chaplain from the Pentagon that was there, and it was very moving, very moving. And they buried the bones that were discovered.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really, really nice to be able to represent the museum at that function.
Yeah. And so, again, those are just two of those gentlemen. For people that have been there, who have gone, to Pearl Harbor and have seen, and the oil still bubbles to this day.
It's the diesel.
Yeah. So the diesel that's coming up from the Arizona where it was sunk. It's a moving experience, but I can only imagine what it would be like to be at a funeral service celebrating one of those people. I was able to meet 4 of the individual. It just so happened that when we were there in Hawaii, we met 4 of the people who were in Pearl Harbor
Wow.
when it was bombed. And there is another shot of the battleship Roe over in Pearl Harbor. Again, that's the east side of Ford Island, and that took place on December 7th, before December 7th, where that took place. And so, again, just one of those days that will live in infamy in our history, and one of those days that, really began what took place thereafter. And so, again, we're excited about celebrating. We talked about 2 of those people. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to talk about another. But, Jay, I want to put that flyer back up one more time. And the importance of what we're discussing today is the Regional Military Museum proudly presents Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. It's going to be an open house on December 7th, which is that day that Pearl Harbor was bombed. The celebration is going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the guest speaker at 10:30, which is free admission, is a school teacher, Miss Elizabeth Betsy Arsenault will be the guest speaker there, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about what happened and her experience and her connection, if you will, with the day. And so really looking forward to that. It is at the museum. And it's going to be a wonderful event. Of course, Mr. Riley Groh here, the president of the Regional Military Museum, and Miss Linda Terrio, the secretary, and both of them on board of directors for it. We've got a long history of really, in our area, honoring our veterans is one thing. The museum does such an incredible job of drawing people in to come and see all of that history of all of our different conflicts and wars. I love the fact that it's all of those things. It's not just a particular museum focused on any one particular event or war, but also all of the things and all the people that make things happen. Mr. Riley, we were talking about all the volunteers and what they do. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about one of those other people in our area whom we have grown to know and love, and what they've been able to do. And so we'll do that when we come back. Thank y'all for joining us. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Don't go away. A whole lot more about the Regional Military Museum when we return.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Hello, and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us, however you may be joining us. We appreciate it. Very glad to have back with us Mr. Riley and Miss Linda, both with the Regional Military Museum, and the excitement about celebrating the Remembrance Day for Pearl Harbor. Of course, it was December 7th, and we're going to celebrate on that day. And as you mentioned, Miss Linda, I'm excited that one of the things that some people may not know, but Pearl Harbor was bombed initially. It started at 7:55 a.m. And you guys are going to go and ring the bell there at the museum at that very time at 7:55.
We sure will.
In honor of and remembrance of all of those
Right.
people. One of those people that we can't forget here in our hometown. Mr. Riley, tell us a little bit about some of the things people may not know about Mr. C.J. Christ.
Well, C.J. Chris is the Regional Military Museum founder.
Right?
His name is Charles J. C.J. Chris. He was a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force. A lot of people don't know, but there was no Air Force during World War II. It was an Air Corps. Air Force was established after. But C.J. Was in the Korean War and the Cold War, what we call. United States Air Force from 1949 to 1957. He was in the 20th Air Force, 4th East Air Force Provisional, 19th Bomber Group, 28 Bomb Squadron. He was stationed in Okinawa.
Right.
He also flew 23 combat missions over North Korea, Strategic Air Command at Roswell Air Force Base, He was in the United States Navy Reserve in 48 and the United States UNIS PCE in 846. Now, CJ had a lot to do with the establishment of the museum.
Right.
Now, in his awards and decoration, he had the Air Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Korean Service Medal, the Armed Forces Reserve Medal, and United States Service Medal. Now, on December the 7th, when we have this a remembrance of Pearl Harbor Day, we also going to dedicate a Jeep. A special Jeep was painted, and it is an Air Force Jeep, and the name of it was?
Misfortune. Miss Missfortune.
Fortune, right.
Misfortune.
Misfortune. Okay.
I didn't put that down on my list, so I forgot it.
No problem.
But anyway, CJ has a lot to do with had a lot to do in the museum. He was president for a long time, and then a gentleman by the name of Will Terrio took it over, which we lost, and I had to fill in for him, and I'm now in the place as president. But you have to come to the museum and see the history that is in this museum. It's more or less self-explanatory. The museum is run by volunteers. A lot of people don't realize that, but we only have one paid gentleman, and he's the one that puts all of the medals and Jeeps and artifacts out, and he takes care of them. That is our paid men. If it wouldn't be for my volunteers, I couldn't run this museum.
Right.
Especially Linda. Linda runs the office. She's my right hand and left hand man.
Both
or
of them.
woman. Okay.
And we always need volunteers. So it's kind of a shout out. If anybody's interested, you can call 985-873-8200, and we can get more information for you and with you. Miss Linda had something else.
Yes.
Speaking of your right and left hand person.
Speaking of volunteers,
Right.
for Mr. CJ, not only will we dedicate this Jeep to him, but Miss Janet Tollerson and Miss Joanne Kirkpatrick were volunteers from Way Win.
Okay.
And they got Hans Geist to make a portrait of CJ.
Oh, my.
And we will unveil that portrait at that same time that we do the Jeep.
And I'm so very glad we didn't want to spoil the surprise, right, today,
Well-
and share that, because most people know CJ, but they're going to get to see him in a different way. Hans is one of our most talented
Right.
artists here in our area, and so he's going to be able to, they're going to display that at the celebration.
We want people to come see that unveiling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Jay, put that flyer up one more time. Go ahead, Mr. Riley.
All right. I want to thank you and the station and everybody else that's involved here for doing this publicity for us. We have a lot of stuff going on. Matter of fact, we're going to have a concert
Sunday the 15th.
Sunday the 15th.
Okay.
It's going to be the community band. They always play it.
They
It's
do a
gonna be
great job.
Christmas music.
Right.
But again, thank you all so much for helping us get the word out for our museum.
Well, listen, I will tell you, Martin is very, very dedicated to all of our veterans here in our area. He's certainly dedicated to the Regional Military Museum. We are so very glad that Mr. Eugene Falls served in the way that he did, and this honors him. Every time we do something for a veteran, we honor Mr. Eugene Falls, and that's a really big deal to us. It's a really big deal to Martin and to all of those who served and who haven't. So we got about 15 seconds left. Go ahead.
Okay, and if you drive down Barrow Street and look at the electrical poles, you'll see pictures of veterans.
Of our heroes.
Of our heroes. Barrow Street is our hero street.
Right.
And if you're interested in one, all you have to do is contact the museum, and we'll
take care
get
of
you
it.
one.
Very good. Thank y'all so much for being here. Looking forward to that celebration on the 7th. All right, that will do it for this particular segment and this Bayou Time, but don't go anywhere. A whole lot more right here on HTV.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.